Today, the topic is darkness and the inversion of reality. So, I often get flashes of concepts and then I channel on them. So I had almost immediately after I finished the channel last week, I got this flash about an inversion of reality and darkness. So I've been planning all week to use it as the topic of this channel. So darkness and the inversion of reality. So what does it mean? How does it work? Okay. Greetings and thank you for the question. Darkness and the inversion of reality. What does that mean? Let us begin with a visual metaphor of the spectrum of light and darkness. So, the spiritual spectrum is light on one end and darkness on the other end. But really what it is light on one end and absence of light on the other end. Because the only thing that is real is the one, and the energy of the one is the light. And so the darkness is not real in a sense, but it is more of a characteristic which is an absence of the light. So its existence is relative to the light. So if we visualize this spiritual spectrum with light on one end and the darkness on the other, the light end radiates like a beacon, and it is sending shards of light everywhere. On the darkness end of the spectrum, we could say it is like a dark ooze, and the shards of light come into and penetrate into the darkness. And so the darkness is forming itself around the light. So it is, in a sense, the shadow of the light. The darkness exists so there may be an experience of the light. Because when there is the contrast of the light and darkness coinciding, coexisting, then this contrast makes possible the experience of the light. In a context where there is only light and nothing but the light, and no place where there is an absence of light, then there can be no experience of the light other than to know it conceptually. So, for there to be an experience of the light, to know it beyond conception, then there must be the presence of the darkness. But the darkness is reactionary. So the light is an action and the darkness is a reaction. So, returning to the visual metaphor, you have the ooze of the darkness and you have the shards of light emanating, radiating into the darkness. And so the darkness is forming itself around the light. And it is a shadow, but it is an inverted shadow. So, where you have the shard of light coming this way, the shadow of the light created by the darkness isn't this shape also, but instead is this shape. And so there is the negative shadow of the light. So if you can imagine, if you had a piece of metal, and in that metal you cut out the shape of a hand, and then when you shine the light through that shape, what appears on the wall in a dark room is an image of a hand, but it is glowing. And then around it is the darkness. The darkness is a shadow, but it is the inverted shadow of the hand. So the darkness is an inversion of the light. It is the negative shadow of the light. It is literally forming around the outside of this ray of light. And this inverted nature becomes manifest in the areas where the darkness has made inroads into the light. So, if we look at the areas of society which are being manipulated by the darkness, it is apparent there is an inversion. So let's discuss some examples of this. The darkness seeks to invert. That is its reaction. It isn't a reaction to the light, and its reaction is to invert. This is what it seeks to do, to invert the light. So, where it has an impact and is able to create change and manipulation through its influence, you will see this inversion, and therefore it is a predictable character. And so when you are looking at something in your society, in your culture, and if you are wondering if it is coming from the light or is coming from the darkness, if you see inversion, then most likely it is coming from the dark. But of course there is syntax, there is definition here which could be found to be some way in which you could say the light is inverting. But in the general principle, beyond syntax, when we're looking at the fundamental characteristic of the darkness to invert, you will see that there are many things in your society which have been inverted through the manipulation of the darkness. So here are some examples. The darkness will say, this is a boy. But when looking closely, you'll see that it is a girl that is being dressed as a boy and identifying as a boy. When there is claim that this is a girl, if you look closely, you'll see that it is a genetic boy that is being dressed as a girl and self-identifying as a girl. Now, these examples are not a condemnation of the child themselves, because the child is being manipulated as a young and innocent being. And also the parents are beyond necessarily being blamed, because they also are victimized of this insidious nature of the darkness to use the cultural pillars to shape the narrative and form a false narrative matrix. And so when extending this concept of inversion to adults, you will have women that have penises, and you'll have men that can have babies. And again, this is the presentation of inversion. And it is not a condemnation of these people. They are of the light, and they have love in their heart, and they wish to be accepted in society, and they wish to be loved, and they are deserving of love, and they are deserving to be accepted. But the influence which has created the sense of identification, which is contrary to the biology, is a manipulation of the darkness, is an attempt of the darkness to create inversion. Extending this further to institutions. You'll have institutions claiming to do one thing, yet the product of what they do will be the opposite of what they claim to do. For example, where the darkness has a lot of influence, you may have institutions such as schools, and they claim to educate children, but instead of enabling children, they disable children in their functionality by teaching them concepts and ideas and untruths which literally hinder them and reduce their capacity to function normally and reach the fruition of their true potential. You will have institutions which claim to protect children, protective services, but the effect of what they actually do is to harm children, to take children away from their families, away from their siblings, to put them into homes where they are mistreated, to literally traffic them for abuse. You will have institutions which claim to protect the financial integrity of a society, of a nation. But in fact, they exist to destroy the financial integrity of a society, to drain the money from the regular men and women of a country and to transfer that to those who are at the pinnacle of this financial structure. And so the basis is not to protect, but instead to exploit. Again, there is this inversion. And if you look closely in your society, you will see that this inversion is playing out in many, 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 many different ways. So, bringing now this conceptual lens to what is occurring with the viral plague, which is now supposedly sweeping across planet Earth. If you examine closely, you'll see that there is inversion everywhere. So, for example, the testing methodology, the testing protocol for this viral plague is proven to have an extraordinarily high rate of false positives. So, it is saying people who are healthy are sick. This is a very classic inversion of reality. And they are saying to be safe, that it is important one wears a mask. However, wearing a mask has been shown to not be effective, and also wearing a mask is detrimental to your health. So it does not improve your health, but instead it diminishes your health. People are told not to gather in large groups. However, herd immunity, where the group becomes inoculated in a natural sense, developing antibodies to the disease as a result of being in large groups, is being denied. So, through isolation, individuals don't have the robustness of immunity that they would have. And so, this reasoning to avoid large groups, to keep you safer, is actually making you more vulnerable. There is inversion. Individuals are told, do not go to the beach, do not go to the park, do not be outdoors, stay in your home. But being outside, being in a state of exertion through exercise, are proven, as is being in the sunshine, to increase your immunity, to increase your capacity to not become ill, and if you do become ill, to recover easily. There is inversion. The medical protocols that are being regulated and mandated also are an inversion. They are a detriment to the health of the individual and not a boon to the health of the individual. The medicines which have been proven to be cures and to bring an end to this viral plague in a matter of only days have been made illegal. There is criminality for a doctor or a pharmacy to provide these medicines to the individuals that request them, even though they have been proven to be very effective. It is an inversion of reality. And the medicines which have been pushed as essential, mandated, must be used, and nothing else can be used but these, are beginning to come to light that they are dangerous. They're deadly. They have consequences which are known to be very contrary to good health, and in the long term, there is the extrapolated science that perhaps it will be very detrimental to the health of individuals that receive this mandated medicine. Inversion. And so, when we extrapolate out to the 30,000 foot view, where the overall message of those that are managing the response to this viral plague are saying, we want to protect you, we want to save you, we want what is safe for you. But looking at all of these aspects, which we have discussed so far, then you can see there is inversion everywhere. And so the inversion of this facade is not that we want to save you, but we want to destroy you. Not that we want to protect you, but we want to make you vulnerable. Not that we want you to be safe, but we want you to be unsafe. It is complete inversion. As you awaken to what is occurring, and you begin to recognize that there is a unified malevolence pitting itself against humanity, this is the reality awakening. Then it becomes your duty to no longer be the gullible sheep that watches and listens and then obeys. Instead, become discerning and be aware that this unified malevolence is using non-traditional tactics of warfare against you. And it is saying the inversion of what it is actually doing. While this seems to be a dire situation for those that have awoken and can see what is occurring, understand that it is all occurring within the context of the One. The One wishes to experience itself. This is its purpose. Because before the creation of existence, there was only the One and nothing but the One. And so the One existed as a concept, because when there is only one, there is no opportunity for contrast, for differentiation. There's no capacity for one thing to observe another thing and say, I am not that thing, which is experience. Yearning to know itself experientially, the One individuated itself infinitum, so that there was the illusion of more than one. And then there was the capacity for one thing to see another thing and say, I am not that, that is not me, therefore it had experience. And through this process of experience, the One will eventually return to a state of completion, when it knows itself to completion experientially. The energy of the One is the light. And so, the One wishes to experience the light. And for there to be an experience of the light, then there has to be something which isn't the light. And so, there is a binary relationship between the light and not the light, or the light and the darkness. So the One can have this experience. And as the One individuated itself infinitum, you are one of these individuations. You are the One having a unique experience of itself through the perspective or the proxy, which is you. You are the One experiencing itself as you. And so this is all interwoven into the divine purpose of experiencing and therefore knowing thyself. Therefore, although there is the appearance of evil and darkness and dread and worry, it is all part of the playground of experience, so the One can complete its purpose. It is not something that has gone wrong. It is not erroneous. It is just part of the process. And because of the unique presentation of the apex species which form in the solar system, it is playing out here with a degree of intensity which is unprecedented. And so your experience of the darkness around you attempting to invert your reality is occurring here in a much more potent way than it has occurred anywhere else before, because of the capacity for spiritual dichotomy in the apex species which have formed in this solar system. We have channeled on this multiple times before, so we won't go into greater detail here. If you wish to know more, then we recommend that you watch some of the other channels on the topic of darkness to understand this concept of spiritual dichotomy and the uniqueness of the solar system apex life forms. You are the one experiencing itself through the unique proxy, which is you. And the physical matrix, the existence, is illusory because there is only one, and the one created the illusion of more than one so that you'd have the experience of itself. So everything which occurs within the illusion is illusory. So the darkness itself is illusory. Where you truly exist, beyond the illusion, is a place where there is only light. And you are as your true essence, which is only the light. Nothing but the light. Because it is only the light which is real. So beyond the physical illusion, only what is real can exist, which is the light. Therefore, you exist there as the light, and the darkness cannot cross that threshold. So you are invulnerable to the darkness. The darkness cannot harm you in the greater context because it cannot cross the barrier, the threshold between physicality and the non-physical. This point is made for you to understand that there is not necessary for you to be fearful. In fact, being fearful is counterproductive, because being fearful is a contribution of darkness to the forces of darkness. They are able to create the effective manipulation they can because they operate from the inversion of the light, which is the darkness. And the darkness, using the lexicon of human emotion, is fear and its derivatives, whereas the light, in the lexicon of human emotions, is love and its derivatives. So they manipulate through fear. It is through the fear of humanity that the darkness is able to manipulate humanity into the position that it is in now. So your fear is a contribution to that, as is everybody's fear a contribution to that. And it makes humanity more vulnerable, more manipulatable. A much more powerful strategy is to be filled with love, to be emanating the light, to treat all other aspects of your reality with love and light. Because this is incompatible with the darkness, this disempowers the darkness. Ultimately, the darkness fails. This is the unfortunate plight of the darkness, is that it has been brought into the illusion so that it will ultimately fail, and the light will ultimately win. This is its destination. The darkness will fail. It has been designed to fail. It has no other option but to fail. Although it may have a series of victories along its way, it will ultimately, in the end, fail, because it has been designed to fail. Because when there is the awakening of every individuation of the one to realizing it is the light, then there is less and less and less and less opportunity for the darkness to have influence, because the darkness is reactionary to the light. The light acts, the darkness reacts. Eventually, the spectrum will be so inundated with the light that there will be no capacity for the darkness to react. It will be pushed into the corner and diminished until eventually there is no space for it, and it can no longer exist coinciding with the light. And it will be the end of darkness, which will be the triumph over illusion, because all aspects of the illusion, which are individuations of the one, will return to full recognition that they are the one, that they are the light. And this will be the completion of this cycle of existence. Everything being fully realized of itself as the light will be the experiential completion of the one's purpose. In that moment, it will know itself to completion in all ways through experience. And existence will coalesce back into the light, and existence will cease to exist. And in that moment, like the beat of a heart, the one will explode itself into infinite individuations again to begin the cycle again. So the darkness can be thought of as the sparring partner of the light. Its role is to create the opportunity for the light to discover itself, for the light to appreciate itself in new ways. By the darkness challenging the light must discover new ways to express itself, new ways to be, so that it can continue to expand around and beyond the obstacles of the darkness. So the darkness exists so that the light may become better, so that the light may be ultimately triumphant, because the sparring partner for the professional boxing athlete is not there to defeat the champion, is not there to destroy the champion, but is there to bring the best out of the champion, and ultimately to fail so that the champion can be triumphant. This is the role of the darkness, and ultimately it will fail. So, when you look in the world in which you're in, and you can see the inroads made by the darkness, understand that ultimately the darkness fails and the light is triumphant. And also, something which is occurring below the surface, which isn't obvious, is this. The darkness is reactionary to the light. And so, the size of the darkness, the verboseness of the darkness, the hubris of the darkness is reactionary to the light of an equal potency, of an equal size. So the darkness looms very big in the societies of Earth at the moment through specifically the viral plague and the reaction to it. But it is this size because the light on this planet is reaching unprecedented potency, unprecedented brilliance, unprecedented radiance and expansion. And the darkness recognizes this and is reacting in a way which is proportional. So, what is to be taken from this is that right now, on planet Earth, within the human field, the power of the light is at an unprecedented level. It is massive. It is extraordinarily large. It is on the verge of exploding in a mass awakening, which will be a obliteration of the darkness. And the darkness understands this. The darkness can see this because the darkness have access to forbidden knowledge. Those that wield the darkness, those who are at the elite levels of the darkness on this planet, those who are orchestrating the viral plague, they have stolen knowledge from humanity and keeping it hidden. And this esoteric knowledge is a knowledge of the light and the dark. And they recognize, because they possess this knowledge, that there is an explosion of the light within humanity. And they also recognize that they are more threatened to obliteration now than at any other time in their history. Because for many thousands of years, those who are at the apex of darkness have continued the traditions of darkness generationally as a single entity, continuing the work of the darkness to reach the ultimate vision, which is the entire planet being under their control, denied of prosperity, denied of liberty, and for many, denied of the right to live. This is their ultimate goal. And for many thousands of years, they have been working towards this. And so right now, at this moment in history on your planet, is their attempt to culminate what they have been working towards for many, 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 many generations. And they have accelerated their plans, brought them forward, because it was not intended for this to occur now, but was intended that this would occur sometime in the future. But what they were unable to anticipate is how readily humanity would awaken to the light. So despite that they control the cultural pillars, they control all of industry, they are toxifying the water, toxifying the air, toxifying the food chain, toxifying ideology, toxifying philosophy, toxifying history, falsifying science. They do all that they can to suppress the light, to further the darkness, to prevent humanity from realizing who they are and what they are capable of. Despite all that they do, the light is percolating within humanity. Humanity is beginning to wake up and understand what is occurring. And for the first time, humanity is beginning to see those who are wielding the darkness. And for the first time, those who are wielding the darkness can see the recognition in humanity's eyes. They can see that humanity sees them. And so they are very fearful. They are very desperate to accomplish this goal that has been the vision of their forces for so long. Because if humanity fully awakens and realizes that much of this suffering which they have been subject to over many generations has been deliberately engineered and orchestrated by these dark forces, then humanity will act to eradicate this parasitic infection. And that will be the end of those that wield the darkness. They are very fearful that this is going to occur. And in response, they have brought forward their agenda by many years. And they have unfurled it in a haphazard way, in a roughshod technique which has exposed them in many ways for being revealed as who they are and what they are doing. So, if you have awoken in this regard, where you can see that there is a unified malevolence pitting itself against humanity, and it seeks to extinguish the light, and one of its principal strategies is to invert reality and to say that one thing is the opposite thing. And then those who are still asleep, even though apparently looking at the thing you can see it is the opposite, but because those who are authority are saying that it is one thing, even though observably it is the opposite thing, they continue to believe not what they observe, but what they are told. If you know people like this in your life, and yet you have awoken and you can see that the inversion is what it is, and what they say is just the lie of the narrative, then it is on you, if you choose, to let other people know this is what is occurring, to spread your light and your clarity of vision to others within the humanity field. Because ultimately, when there is transcendence of third density, where humanity finds itself now, into fourth density, this transition will be the awakening to a fifth dimensional way to exist. So right now, humanity exists in the 3 dimensions of space and the dimension of time. So you are 4-dimensional beings. When you transcend to fourth density, which is a harmonic above in the energy field, the vibration you will have there will be a harmonic above where you are now. In that elevated energy field where you vibrate higher, there will be the new capacity, and that new capacity, or one of many, will be a new dimension through which you will exist. So no longer will you be the 3 of space and the 1 of time, but you will also have the dimension of unity. You will say, I am me, but also you will say, I am the unity. You will literally have more than one answer to the question, I am. You will be the unity, and the unity will be the humanity being. The humanity being will be a group being. It will be a single being of many parts. And so you will identify still as the individual, but you will also identify as this larger being, the group being. This will be your 5th dimensionality. So, as this is the destiny of the earth human to be self-identified as the individual and as the group, then all other humans now are you. You are the same being. You are the humanity being, still not realized that this is so, still not awoken to this reality. So, if you have the insight now that this will be so, because now in the third density it is not possible to have this fifth dimensional awareness. It is not a capacity of third density. However, it is possible to know it conceptually, to understand it intellectually. And with this understanding, begin to treat all other aspects of the humanity being as yourself. And so it is your duty to spread the knowledge that you have within the greater self, within this expanded context of who you are. The time to stay silent has passed. Silence going forward is acquiescence. It is compliance. It is conspiring with the forces of darkness to bring about their vision. Now is the time to act from the light, to be verbosely of the light. And this can be easily done by sharing these insights with those who are close with you, with those who you could say these things to without great impact on your life. And also, be filled with the light. Be a being of the light. Act from the light. Become a being of greater virtue, authentic virtue. Not postured virtue for the purpose of earning social credit, which is reliant on an audience, but instead just be truly virtuous, which is characteristic of the light. So be more honest, be more loving, be more understanding, be more generous, be more grateful, be more peaceful. By behaving this way, as more virtuous, you become clarified in your spiritual energy. And so rather than being filled with fear, which isn't you, because you have arisen, you have come from the one, then you are forged from the light. Your constituency, what you are made from, is light. And so to identify with the darkness, as in I am afraid, is a misidentification of who you are, and it is a contribution to the darkness which seeks to destroy you and your way of life and all those that you love and care for. A much more powerful response is to be of the light, to express the light and only the light at all times as the best that you can. And a very simple way to define this is to be virtuous, to be honest and loving and peaceful and grateful and so on. And this will exude onto those around you. And when they are treated with the virtuous attributes of the light, then they will pass it on. They will feel enriched and pass it on. And this is a spreading of the light throughout the humanity being and forming greater the unity, which is the destiny of humanity. And when there is this unity, the radiance of the light is amplified, where the unity is greater than the sum of the parts. And in this environment, in this ambience, the darkness cannot coexist. It is entirely incompatible with the nature of the darkness. And when each individual purges the darkness, and says, I am not afraid anymore, I am not worried, I am not anxious, then this energy is no longer available to be harvested by those that are using the darkness parasitically. Again, if you wish to understand this more, this concept of parasitically harvesting the darkness, then it can be found in channels which were channeled recently. So, let us close in this way. If you are being pushed in a certain direction and you are wondering, is this really what they say it is? Is this really for my benefit? Is this really for the good of the community? But you have a sense perhaps it's not, then look for inversion. Is there inversion? Is it one thing and yet they are saying it is something entirely different? If they are saying that is very, very, very good, then be highly suspicious that what it actually is an inversion of that, being very, very, very bad. The mouths of the darkness are in control of the cultural pillars. So, if it is news media that says it, or if it is entertainment media that says it, or if it is the education system that says it, or it is the legal system that says it, or if it is the government monolithic apparatus that says it, then be very suspicious and look for inversion. Because it is quite likely that what this effect or principle they speak of is in fact the inverted reality. Consciousness in the humanity field elevates. It continues to expand. There continues to be a greater sophistication and understanding of the relationship between the light and the dark, and the darkness is being pushed back, the lightness is awakening. So be encouraged. The darkness is spreading its wings, ruffling its wings and lifting its arms to appear large and scary, because it is terrified that the light is exploding to a size where soon it will not be able to use the illusion of the smoke and mirrors to appear powerful to an extent which matches the light. And eventually the light will explode to a dimension in size where even at their largest, most attempt to be scary, they will still appear to be small and puny. This is coming. This is what they are terrified of, and it is closer than you think. So, be of the light. Love the humanity field, and stay strong and resolute. Thank you, and we love you.